BYU is going to make Alabama look like a fifth-grade rec team. Texas Tech will beat John Calipari, and Houston is in the national championship. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. We're going to the Sweet 16, baby. 4 teams. That's 25% of the Big 12 Conference. Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, and Arizona are all still marching in March Madness, proving that our conference is how you say good. Where we will start today, I have insane news for BYU fans. I have an insane prediction for Houston. For Texas Tech and Arizona, the news isn't all that bleak for you either. And if you stick around the middle segment, Scott Drew, Baylor, we need to reevaluate. Have we lost a blue blood in the Big 12? Can we all steamroll Baylor for years to come? Maybe. And then at the end, BYU is the biggest story of March. There are no underdogs. There's nothing left except for the gosh darn tater tots. Kevin Young, the first-year head coach, Yegor Demon, Kiba Keita, Richie Saunders, and those Cougars, who are the biggest story of March in America. I'll explain why. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. Where we will start, I have one thing for all of you, a present. If you're a fan of Cincinnati and you're listening today, hi, thank you. You're putting in the hours, the work, supporting this conference. We're happy to have you here. I have good news for BYU fans. You're walking into March Madness wondering if you'll lose to VCU because all of America kind of thinks you're going to. You get past them. You get past Wisconsin. Crazy nail-biter game. The referees sucked. Now you play Alabama. And I'm asking you to do one thing. I'm starting with you today because I have great news and I need you to hope. Put faith in the Cougars. There's one thing you're really, really good at. It's the whole faith thing. And the reason that I'm asking you to have faith is this. Shot quality, who said that you would beat VCU, who said that you would beat Wisconsin, says that the BYU Cougars will beat Alabama in the Elite Sweet 16 to go to the Elite 8. They have BYU as the 9th-ranked team in America, Alabama 10th, the Cougars better. They have the final score being 82.6 to 82.5. And you know what? 0.1 points is still a deficit. That means that BYU beats Alabama. I'll go into a deep dive and a deep breakdown later on this week, but hello. If there's one reason to have hope, there's your hope for today. The analytics, the advanced analytics. I sent my text to my roommates this week and said, hammer BYU. The advanced analytics love it. He responded, anytime I hear advanced analytics, I'm in. He rode the Cougars and we won a lot of money. I don't know. I didn't mean to admit that to the bishop here. But yes, I love the Cougars this week. I also love the Cougars of Houston who play Purdue here. Purdue's very good. I watched their 2 games and oh boy, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, Matt Painter can win in March. But by the way, it's Houston, and right now they're a machine. And right now, over the last month, they haven't lost anyone to significant time. Their injuries aren't a huge problem as they've been in the past. I think the Houston Cougars have the easiest path of anybody right now to the Final Four. Why? Don't trust Purdue in March. And Kentucky and Tennessee are SEC schools. I don't trust the SEC. Oh, Kentucky beat Illinois. Okay. Houston's league's better than Illinois. Tennessee beat UCLA. Okay. Houston will beat UCLA by 23 points. Houston is going to walk to the Final Four here. Then for Texas Tech, you have 3 players left. What's the deal? Who's your strength and conditioning coordinator? Who's your nutritionist? Who's feeding the team before the games? And what is in the food? Can you please just somehow stay healthy? You play John Calipari in Arkansas. Look, this is a flash in the pan Arkansas team. Very talented, yes. Very cohesive. Not really. They're not the kind of squad that should scare you in March, other than the fact that John Calipari is their coach. And guess who's choked away a whole lot during March Madness? That would be John Calipari. I'm not worried about Texas Tech playing Arkansas. Arkansas played Baylor in 2021 when the Bears won the national championship. Arkansas has made 4 of 5 Sweet 16s. They still can't make the Final Four. The Hogs have struggled to win post Sweet 16. Now playing Texas Tech, who's a great defensive team. St. John's was really, really bad offensively. Like the first 2 teams that Arkansas has played, Kansas was just kind of not good this year. Sorry, Kansas. St. John's was terrible offensively. Now, Texas Tech is a machine defensively and offensively. They were tactical against a solid Drake team. They were very good against UNC Wilmington. It was close, but they showed, hey, even when the defense kind of lapses or an opposing team makes more shots than we expect them to, we can score. 82 points in round 1, 77 in round 2. Those are both markers that are better than what Arkansas put up against Kansas and St. John's. That is how you say good. Texas Tech will beat Arkansas. Then there is a bit of a conundrum here. Duke, according to most analytics, it's like number 1 in the country in pretty much everything. They're very, very good. I told you, and you can see the score, 89-66 against Baylor. I told you that Duke would cover in the game against the Bears. They did cover in the game against the Bears. I'm a Baylor alum, would love to root for them. Also, just kind of can't lie to you when they're playing the Duke Blue Devils. Duke's solid. For Arizona to beat them, give me a second. It's going to take me a little bit this week to figure out. I mean, Caleb Love's really good. Like that's a big thing. When you have a senior that can go out and put you in a position to win any given night, when you have a senior in March Madness, honestly, that's really good. But the game against Oregon was sloppy. You play like that, Duke will beat you by 15. I like Jaden Bradley as well. Jaden Bradley was, I think, double digits, somewhere like 12, 13 points against Oregon. Trey Townsend, too. There are enough. He wasn't great, but he exists. And, actually, I just pulled the box score 10 minutes. Thanks, Trey Townsend. This is an Arizona team that's going to need some help. I don't know what to tell you. You're going to need some help. I'll figure out a way to prove to you that you can win the game sometime later this week. Coming up, let's do it. I'm not happy with the way that Baylor basketball is doing things right now. And if you're the rest of the Big 12, here's why you should continue to listen, because you have a chance to become the new Baylor, to continue to beat them. TCU's beaten them 3 times in Waco the last 3 years. We might be losing a blue blood in the Big 12, and everybody else can take their spot. BYU's taking their spot actively on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Let me tell you what, March and living on the East Coast, 2 things that are a little rough because of the entire playing games at midnight. Daylight savings time has also thrown me for a loop. 5 Hour Energy has my back. Whether you're staying up late watching the tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or trying to keep up with the day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. With basketball going on, my life is madness. 5 Hour Energy keeps me up. Extra daylight, extra activities. Tropical Burst is my go-to for a quick boost and on-the-go convenience. 5 Hour Energy, easy to grab, keeps me feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. Watermelon, blue, raspberry, peach, mango. Even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Shop today, and stay energized with 5 Hour Energy. I think it's time we can have a conversation about Scott Drew, the Baylor Bears, and the trajectory of that program. Not that Drew needs to be fired, but the way that Baylor goes about its business, the way that Baylor has recruited, the way that Scott Drew has formed his last few teams has been, say it with me, bad. Not good. Did you know the Baylor Bears have not made the NCAA tournament second weekend since they won the national championship in 2021? Now, look, what I want to do is pause here and say I just uttered the words about Baylor basketball since they won the underline national championship, right? We can't take that away from Scott Drew. We shouldn't take it away from Scott Drew. That team was 1 in a million, impeccable in college basketball and all time. But since then, what have they done? They won a Big 12 championship. It's cool. It's a great banner. I mean, it's awesome. That's an accomplishment, right? I host Locked On Big 12. The flag's behind me. But after that, what have they done in the postseason? What have they done in March Madness? And where I think it all starts, and this affects the entire Big 12, because what's happening right now is, we have a perennial NCAA tournament team, but are they just Syracuse? Are they Jim Boeheim Syracuse, who was really, really good? And then you're like, oh, yeah, they're in the tournament, but we're not really worried about playing them. Is that where Baylor's gone? And if you're a Baylor fan or a Big 12 fan, you're thinking, do we lose a school that we were once considering a possible blue blood? The only way to be a blue blood is to make consistent Sweet 16s or Final Fours. Houston is doing that right now. Alabama is doing that. Arkansas has made 4 of 5 Sweet 16s, but Baylor has only made 1 Sweet 16 in almost a decade, and it was the year that they won the national championship. Outside of that, what is happening to the Bears? And I think the entire Big 12 can ask the question, have we lost a perennial power in Baylor? And it's a fair question to ask. What I think it starts with, and I'm a guy who went to Baylor, graduated from there, big Baylor fan, watched the game against Duke, frustrating. This entire year was frustrating. I reluctantly was like, when this team loses, I will get better sleep. This has just been a very hard team to watch. Barely crept to 20 wins this year, struggled through Big 12 play, lost at home to TCU for the 3rd consecutive year. What is going on with Scott Drew's Baylor? And I think it starts with this name, Kendall Brown. I remember where I was hosting Up Tempo, a radio show in Waco, Texas, with J.D. Piquel. Known good guy turned bad guy, turned heel, who now loves the SEC, and a lot of Big 12 fans don't like him. I was hosting that show when Kendall Brown committed. He was a blue chip recruit out of Minnesota, and everybody wanted this Sunrise guy who was going to come to Baylor and be revolutionary. Then I remember that same season, this is the year after a national championship, Baylor's a 1 seed, champions of the Big 12, and they're down to like 5 or 6 guys. Jonathan John Mochachua had that egregious, terrible injury, and at this point, you're playing North Carolina, you're down 25. Brady Manick, there's a wild name to pull out of my hat, gets injured. And all of a sudden, I'm there. I mean, it's a Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. Baylor is back in the game. They can win it. And Kendall Brown was so bad. Scott Drew could not trust Kendall Brown to the point that with 6 players remaining, maybe 5.5 left on this team healthy, Brown rode the bench during overtime of that game against North Carolina. Baylor would go on to lose, despite it being a wild game. James Akinjo steps up. He's that point guard who went to Arizona, then to Baylor. And those names actually have a lot to do with where I'm going here. If you're a fan of Texas Tech, if you're a fan of BYU, if you're a fan of UCF, I hope you write a letter to your local congressman, to your local college basketball coach, and say, please don't build teams the way that Scott Drew has built the last couple Baylor teams. And I think even Scott Drew is taking a look in the mirror and going, this is not a winning formula. Now, Langston Love stayed there for a long time. There are players who are staying at schools for a long time. I hope Dawson Baker is back at BYU next year. He's not an NBA guy, right? You hope that there are guys in the pipeline who become lovable figures for your team, and then eventually they go on to do great things. They play 2 or 3 years for you. But what Scott Drew has done, from James Akinjo to Jeremy Roach, is go find a really good transfer. Let's go find a great guy, Jaden Nunn, a great guy out of the transfer portal who was either awesome at a big school, Arizona or Duke, or great at a smaller school like VCU. We'll go get that guy, Dale Bonner, D2 kid. We will bring him into Baylor, and he'll help lead us, this senior guard. And then, better yet, we'll sign the number 2 player in America, Kendall Brown, Keontae George, VJ Edgecombe. And we'll have that guy on campus for 7 months. That guy's a Baylor Bear for 7 months. And that senior guard that we got out of the transfer portal that's not going to go to the NBA, that guy's a Baylor Bear for 7 months. And then you look around the room and you go, oh, shoot, our entire starting 5 was only here for 7 months. And then if you want to question too, we all know, like, Scott Drew or his family were in Lexington last year considering leaving the Baylor job and going to Kentucky and giving up on Waco and the Bears. And I say giving up lately, right? It's awesome. You've been here for 20 years, rebuilt the worst program in college basketball. You've done your time. If you leave, tip of the hat to you. But it also shows that Drew is not necessarily, turning down offers all the time everywhere. He's going to, he may turn you down in the end, but he's going to explore it. And if it's the right offer, we know. Right? Had the Kentucky offer been right, probably would have taken it. Is he tired? Is he trying out a new formula to see if it works? Because the loss to Clemson in the Sweet 16, to go to the Sweet 16 in the round of 32, the loss to North Carolina. Like, Baylor's winning March Madness games in round 1 against Norfolk State. Yeah, Baylor's winning round 1 of March Madness, but they get to round 2 and they're upset by Clemson, or they get boat raced by Duke in a game that's competitive for a bit, and they kind of give you hope. You think Baylor's young, but they were just so overmatched in that game against Cooper Flag. And the reason that Baylor is playing a 1 seed in round 2 is because you positioned yourself there. You positioned yourself there through poor play in the Big 12. And I plead for everyone in this conference, don't build a roster like that. And I believe that Scott Drew, based on some things he said to the media this year, would kind of agree he's going to try to stop building a roster like that. The greatest freshman in America, second, third, whatever, alongside arguably the best transfer senior guard in the country, and then some big who he flips into a powerhouse, Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua, Josh Oceanwuna. Last year, he's had a myriad of these guys who have come in and gone from a big that you didn't think would be very good. Jeremy Sohan can be kind of included in that, though he's a bit of a point guard, kind of a 4, can run the 5, goes everywhere. That style of play is just not going to win in March Madness. It's not going to win for Scott Drew. It hasn't won for Baylor. They built the national championship off of guards who transferred to not go to the NBA, but to go to Baylor to play for a couple years, then boost their draft stock to the NBA. Jared Butler, Davion Mitchell, then go to the league, then play. And while they were in college, they wanted to win. They didn't want to boost their own draft stock. They wanted to win. And this year, it was like Baylor just, I don't know, didn't really want to win. Those kids are only here 7 months. They don't run the line. They don't go to line camp, do they? Don't build your teams like that. Coming up, BYU might be the best story in college basketball right now. Like legitimately might be the best story in college basketball right now. And it's kind of crazy why. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is spectacular because with big games coming up all month long in basketball, I am all over using the Game Time app to get the lowest prices guaranteed on those tickets. With Game Time, the ticket buying process is easy. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd in the biggest moments. That's where Game Time comes in to help. With Game Time picks and its curation that makes it easier to find better value for concerts, sports, comedy, theater, and more. Check the Game Time app. Amazing deals today. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price out there. With seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guaranteed. Book with total confidence with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices. That's guaranteed with Game Time. BYU is the best story in March Madness right now. BYU has become the best story in March Madness right now. Reason being, and what I'm going to do is pull up the bracket here. Who else is there? This is the first time in like a gajillion years we don't have a double-digit, an 11 seed or worse heading to the Sweet 16. Like, let me read you some of these schools that are here, and then I'll explain to you why I think BYU is the very best story in March Madness right now, from Richie Saunders to Keba Keita to even flipping, did you watch the video? Have you seen the video yet? It was heartbreaking watching Dawson Baker in the locker room. Let's see. Let's turn the audio on this. Dawson Baker's in the locker room during the BYU game. They set up a camera to catch a celebration just in case BYU was going to win, and instead it catches Dawson Baker's reaction to BYU. It broke my heart watching a guy who, oh my gosh. Before I describe to you, I will eventually get there why BYU is the best story in college basketball. You ever been trapped in the corner, you're just kind of ripping through? He didn't mean to hit the guy in the cojones, and here he is, clock winding down. down, and you're in a prison cell watching on television your team play in the round of 32 for a chance to go to the Sweet 16. It broke my heart. It was terrible. I hope all those referees have their eyes pried open and they have to watch Dawson Baker watch that over and over and over. But here are the teams that are in the Sweet 16 right now. Tennessee, Kentucky, Houston, Purdue. All of those are pretty big names. How about Alabama? They're up there too. Duke, Houston. We already even Big 12 schools aren't surprises. Auburn or Michigan, Ole Miss, Michigan State, Florida, Maryland, Texas Tech, Arkansas. Guess who Arkansas's coach is? That's right, John Calipari. So if you want to talk about schools that weren't supposed to be here, we don't talk about Kevin Young. Yeah, John Calipari's John Calipari. Are we shocked he's winning in March? I mean, maybe based on his recent track record, but BYU is every school in the mid-major ranks or the independent ranks dream. Reason being, 4 years ago, if this happened to BYU, listen to this. I'm going to listen to this. 4 years ago, this happened to BYU. Who would they have celebrated with? There's a flag behind me that says Big 12 on it, has a Big 12 logo. When Houston wins, we all win. Despite Iowa State losing, right? Houston won. That helps us, the Big 12 conference. When BYU wins, Twitter is exploding with UCF fans and Cincinnati fans and Arizona fans saying they did it. We're proud of BYU today. Who was proud of BYU in independence? Whoa, that was tough. And now they have a family. You wandered in the desert for so long, wondering who was going to root for you as the underdog. And I think a bit of this. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have utmost respect for every person at BYU who upholds that faith, who upholds the standards of BYU, who carries that faith. It's one of the largest growing faiths in the world. And BYU fans are serious about it. I appreciate that. I value that. As someone of faith myself, I get it. And dang, that's cool. But BYU gets a lot of hate for it. Some of the hate is packaged interestingly, right? We heard earlier this year that Arizona chant the Big 12 never really responded to, never put a fine on Arizona for. And you hear Wisconsin chanting coffee or caffeine or whatever it was at BYU free throw shooters. And there are some things done in jest, but BYU has by and large been made fun of by a massive population in this country for a long time for what the university stands for. And what the university stands for is a religion. If people made fun of Notre Dame the way they make fun of BYU, universities would be fined in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. But for some reason, BYU is the exception. And now here they are in the Sweet 16 for the first time since Jimmer Fredette. And a couple of years ago, when this team came into the league, pundits like me didn't know what to think. Not because they're religious, not because the religious deal, but because football's coming from the wilderness. The WCC a couple of years ago, like, who's celebrating with you? Portland? San Francisco? Congrats, BYU, right? And now they're in a conference where I said 3 years ago, 3 years ago, I don't know if they can compete in football. I don't know if they can compete in basketball. I don't know if BYU can be a mainstay in this conference because the Big 12 is so parity filled on the gridiron and dominant in basketball. How do you walk into this league having been pretty darn bad, if not mediocre, in the WCC, and you walk in this league and dominate and find a way to win? And they have. They committed. They showed the world what it looks like when you give a mid-major. I'm going to say it. BYU is a mid-major in independence. The WCC is not even the Big East. They showed what happens when you give a school that's committed to winning, that's committed to investing, that's committed to being a part of something bigger than just their own little bubble of college athletics. If you do that, you can compete at the highest level. Some universities don't want to do that. Some of the new schools in the Big 12 have not showcased their want to do that, especially from an investment standpoint. BYU has a school 40 minutes away that's been doing this at a very high level for a long time. It's been doing this for a decade in the Pac-12 and now the Big 12. And BYU had to sit in the shadow of that, knowing that Utah got to be a power program winning conference championships and BYU was independent. And now they come to the Big 12 and they immediately make the Sweet 16. And then On top of that, before they go to the Sweet 16, their coach left, right? So to me, there are all of these factors that pile on that make BYU an impeccable story. Richie Saunders, not a lot of glitz and glam. First one in, last one out. Makes his free throws, coach's kid, you know? His great-grandpa invented the tater tot. That's the best we got. We don't have the number 2 player in the country. I mean, you will, by the way, number 1, actually. You know, BYU doesn't have a bunch of 4- and 5-star blue-chip prospects. You go in the portal, you put it together, you get kids that want to follow a very strict code of conduct. And my goodness, the last time BYU was in the Sweet 16, that code of conduct came in handy or anti-handy more than ever. And now, in front of the world, you get to carry your faith that BYU puts so paramount. You get to carry the Big 12 conference. You get to carry a fan base that was lost for a long time, that just wanted something to be a part of for a long time. And those 3 letters on the middle of your jersey in March Madness represent the one team that everyone's going to count out. When they make their, most likely to win, 1 through 16 power rankings, BYU will be 13, 14, 16 maybe in some of these. And I here's what I say to that. Keep doubting. Keep doubting. We'll be sitting here eating our tater tots. That's it. This March has not been very mad. and there isn't that, Bradley or even Drake still hanging around. There's not an FGCU to root for. So I beg of you, Big 12 fans, if you want a school, a team, a program that has been underrated, that people still don't give the respect it deserves, if you want that school, that program to root for, I beg of you. It's about time to root for BYU. And certainly every other Big 12 team in the Sweet 16. But they aren't really the story of March. They've been here before. They do this. Even Texas Tech basketball has been so. They went to a national championship a couple of years ago. This is new for BYU. And the more teams that step up to put the Big 12 on the map even higher and higher, even bigger and bigger, the better. And BYU is doing that. Somehow that new school that came in from the mid-major ranks is doing that. And it rocks. Kevin Young, my hat goes off. Tom Holmoe, my hat goes off. To that university, to its fan base. Newark? They're sending you to Newark, I think. Is that right? Old? Man. Ooh. Newark, New Jersey. If I can tell you one thing, listen good. Share this. Clip this. Share it. If you're a BYU fan, I've paid hundreds of dollars, almost gone broke. Don't be irresponsible. Almost gone broke buying tickets to national championships, seeing the Baylor Bears play, to NCAA tournament games, to college football bowl games. Almost gone broke doing it. Worth every penny. Win and lose. Worth every penny to represent the logo, the brand, the people. If you have the opportunity this week, Newark, New Jersey, not much to do. Find a way to get out there. Drive through the night. If you're a student, drive through the night, baby. It'll all be worth it. You'll remember it. You'll love it. This has been and always will be the rest of this week. Oh, my gosh. Great coverage in the Big 12. All the games, all the teams. Locked on. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.